Hörrni, innan vi fortsätter vill jag kort tipsa om ett sjukt spännande event som är på G. Den 7 maj år 2026 kommer jag tillsammans med Agerar, Uniper och Etals hosta en exklusiv kväll för e-handlare. Vi kommer prata om hur ni går från att göra allting själva till att leda ett team som med rätt AI-stöd bygger tillväxt och får betydligt mycket mer gjort på kortare tid. Jag modererar samtalet och på plats för att snacka och mingla finns erfarna e-handlare och experter som jobbar med de här frågorna varje dag. Vi utlovar konkreta insikter och sanningar. Det här vill ni bara inte vissa. Vi kommer att vara på Ageras helt fantastiska kontor mitt i Stockholm. Snart släpps de första talarna. Vi har ett begränsat antal platser, så claima din plats via länken i våra show notes. Och nu så fortsätter avsnittet. That as an example, I mean how such a concept appears. I mean, part of the decision making has to be data driven, but if you're too data driven, you kind of kill creativity, right? But if you're too creative, it kind of usually take too much risk because creativity takes over and you don't do buying in a proper risk managed manner. How many percent when running a fashion brand is creativity versus data?
For me, it's 50-50.
50-50?
I think it depends on the moment or where the company is, to be honest. And actually, what is the role that the company wants to have? There are companies that are super trendsetters. And on those, it's 80 on design, 20 on numbers, because those companies will drop that style, even if it's going to perform or not. It's just their identity. And then I would say, like in the opposite, you have mass market brands that they will only do the stuff that sells. So I think it depends on where we are as a company. If we want to be super design driven, okay, it's going to be 80-20. If we just are looking for profit, make money, and we might in the meantime lose our identity, but at least we make the money. So we'll go 80 on data and 20 on design. So I think it can vary throughout the time that a company has throughout his lifetime.
Framtidens E-Handel, Sveriges ledande podcast inom retail och e-handel, sponsras denna vecka av Orange Juice. Driver du ett e-handelsvarumärke och vill öka din lönsamhet, inte bara din omsättning? Orange Juice är en tillväxtbyrå som hjälper er med strategi, mediaköp, finansiell optimering och allt däremellan. De jobbar nära ert team för att skapa hållbar tillväxt och stärka ert kassaflöde. Vill ni veta mer? Besök oj.co, ohjai.co och upptäck hur Orange Juice kan hjälpa er att växa lönsamt.
Hej och varmt välkommen till ett nytt avsnitt av Framtidens E-Handel. Mitt namn är Björn Påmaspenga. Med mig i poddstudion idag har jag 2 stycken personer från helt olika läger i samma brand. Och å ena sidan så har vi Head of Design som gör produkter genom magkänsla, lite genom data, framförallt genom kärlek till kunden. Och andra sidan så har vi Head of Purchasing som ska göra inköp baserade på datadrivna beslut. Det vi ska ta reda på är hur de balanserar sitt samarbete, hur de lyckas ta balanserade beslut i brandet MIKUTA. Varmt välkomna till podden. Welcome to the podcast. Gael Hallå, Head of Design at MIKUTA, and Rita Sousa, Head of Purchasing at MIKUTA. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you guys?
I'm good.
Good, yeah. Thank you for having us.
It was a mess getting here yesterday, Rita, from Portugal. Tell me about your trip.
It was a long flight. It's starting at 3 a.m. because it was the first flight in the morning. Then I understood there was some problem with the plane, so it moved to 1 p.m. And I finally got here at 9 p.m. It was a long day, but I actually managed to work in between. So
it's been a snowstorm, and sometimes those delays are quite nice because, as you said, you get to work a little bit. You get to focus on your own topics without any external distractions.
Yeah.
And you're born and raised in northern Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in fashion for quite a while.
Yeah.
What have you done in the past?
I studied management and I worked 2 years in consultancy, which I really recommend. I would love my kids to one day go do some consultancy before start working. There is a lot of the way that I think that comes from there. And then I was 1 year studying in London, fashion retail management. And only when I finished that, I officially moved into working into fashion. So I worked at a family brand before when I started in the north of Portugal still. Then I moved to Salsa Jeans for a quick stay. And then I was at the accessories brand Parfois. It's also based in Portugal for 4 years. And then now for 1 year and a half in MIKUTA. And I'm realizing that I'm doing this exact same job with different levels of, I would say, like seniority, but the same for like 9 years, 10 years now. So yeah.
Exciting. And you, Galo, you've been employed in MIKUTA for almost 3 years. It feels like you were one of the first employees in the company, in the brand.
I was actually one of the first employees, at least one of the first in Berlin, because we have an office in Berlin. So,
how's the journey been? Like, what was the revenue back then and the team back then? And what's the revenue today and the team today?
So on the revenue, it's like something where you're asking for a head of design. So I just can say more about the mood and the feeling, but it wasn't as huge. I mean, like also like the number of style that we had was quite low. The thing is, like with my background, I have like a lot of experience as well with having more SKU, more style and everything. So it was really a point where it start from, okay, bringing more style, speaking about seasonality, thinking about like kind of when should we do what, how, when we have a bestseller, how do we implement the collection as well. And so it has been kind of a journey just coming. I think I also started being the only designer. Right now I'm the head of design and I have 3 designers working in the team. So it's really also like another, I mean, every year it's almost look like another job. So I really appreciate it.
You guys work for the same brand, but in different offices. You, Gal, you work from the Berlin office. And you're originally French, from Paris, no?
Actually, I'm from Alsace. I grew up there. I moved to do my study and for my first job in the north of France. I was working in the leader of e-commerce in France. And then after I decided to move to Germany and I'm living in Germany for 12 years now.
Why Germany?
Why not? Why Germany is the question where everyone was asking me when I moved from France. Just say, are you going to do fashion in Germany? And I say, yes. I mean, why not? But I mean, I fell in love with Berlin. I was living in Hamburg as well. Hamburg is and I discovered that the way of working, the German way of working, and I think we can talk about this later, right? Mm-hmm. I really appreciate the German way of working. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So you're working from the Berlin office, Gael. You, Rita, work from the Portugal office. The office is about the same size in each country. You also have about the same number of employees. I think it's 20-something in each office. But they're completely different. Rita, what is going on in Portugal versus in Germany?
So Portugal office is a lot more loud, I would say. Tasks that we have there or the areas that we have there is purchasing, logistics, product development, customer experience, and half of HR, let's say, because the other half is in Germany, in Berlin office. It's a very loud office. Our product development, as it should be, the product development team is very energetic. So I would say that's the biggest difference, direct difference in the environment that you get in the Portuguese office compared to the Berlin one. If you want to be quiet, you have to find your own space because it's not easy to find a quiet place in there. Yeah, working from home helps. Yeah.
And what's the challenge of having 2 different offices in 2 different countries, while it obviously would be better to have just everyone at the same place?
I think there is a lot of challenge, but there is also like a lot of benefits. The challenge is communication. I think this is the biggest challenge because in our area, we are working with the design, the purchasing and the product development. Purchasing and product development, they are in Portugal and design is in Berlin. So communication, when we decided to change, who take the lead about changing something? How do we communicate? Do we need to travel more? Do we need to make some more call or everything? So no, it's really hard. But the good thing is also you can find like some people where the communication is easy as well because you have this natural connection. And I think this might also be like, it's something between us, which is really helping a lot. We always know that sometimes when there could be tension about design taking a decision, we always know it's just about kind of the work and we always can find a solution. And I think we are both also solution driven. It's like kind of if you explain your point, I can say, okay, let's do that. Yeah. If I explain my point, you also do it actually.
Yeah, sometimes I let you in sometimes. That's true. Yeah, but these 3 teams have to work very tight together. And I think in the beginning when I joined, I was like, okay, there is no problem. We are in different offices. Things will just flow naturally. And it's not like that. You have to do something to adapt. I think we have a lot of meetings in our calendars because there's really no way we can just step up from our places and go in there and say, Gael, what do you think about this? It's not happening. Everything is a lot more formal. It's a little bit more of a moment. So we have to schedule a meeting. But I think it makes it a lot easier if you find someone, which is happening now, I think, between the three of us, that would have the same background, I would say, that we are focused on delivering something, not who is the winning one on this one.
It's the design which is winning at the end. So.
Because what is the company about? Well, it's the product, isn't it? No, it's not. It's also
it's not profit.
The number of the products you buy, the cash flow it requires, etc. And that's the thing. The thing is that I was in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago. MIKUTA opened the second store. The first one is in Berlin. The second one was in Amsterdam. The entire team was present. And you guys had a presentation together on stage, which was so much fun to see. That's why I wanted to do the podcast with the two of you. Because you have those both extreme angles towards the business. You have Gael, you love the product. You're so passionate about every single detail, every single color, every single story within the collection. And then we have you, Rita, who is always, coming with your perspective, which is like the amount of risk we want to take on certain collections, what we should buy, what we should not buy, what are the quantities we should buy, the risk we want to take. And balancing that out without kind of killing each other, that's hard. So why haven't you guys killed each other yet?
Distances. This is the reason why you have two offices.
It's the secret.
That's why. Okay.
No, personality-wise.
Yeah.
Because we might have a different way of thinking. I think we respect each other. I really need also, when Rita joined, I really needed to have someone balancing with me and helping me with the number and really trying to find solutions. Because till then, it was a lot about gut feeling, which was working at the beginning. When you say how it was like working at the beginning, it was like kind of feeling what we want to do and makes total sense. But at one point, it's like kind of, we really need to have like data on the side. And I used to work with data, obviously. And yeah.
Let's put some context behind that. I think when you started, I think the brand made about 10 million euros per year. And now, 3 years later, it's making about 26 million euros per year. So there's obviously been a growth.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we hired you, I think I was the person who signed the contract even. That was when it was a mess, an insane mess. And we had to prioritize and we had to try to survive, not necessarily because we didn't have a business that worked, but because the operations just was a freaking mess. How was it coming into MIKUTA back then? And how has the business changed since 3 years back?
When I came there, I have to say now I realize there was a lot of frustration on my side because I could have seen what we needed to structure, and it wasn't possible at the time. It was always one step after each other, and it was first to see, okay, is it okay to send like tech pack every day? Also having Jacqueline just thinking, oh, maybe we can add this or that into the collection, and I also wanted to please her a lot. And I wanted to make it happen. So it's always this thing, just say, but maybe we need to have the drop more structure. Maybe we also need to do like a proper meeting. So when we were traveling in Portugal, I don't really remember if there was like a specific topic. And I say, by my experience, because this was also one of the things that I think I brought at this time, working in international company, where it was like not flexible at all, but at least they have structure. And at one point it was coming there, just say, I think we should travel to Portugal to do a proto fitting. We need to have all the proto there. And then we all decide things together. So it was like, as I say, step by step. You saw me telling the story, which is what I love to do. As I say, I love to, speaking about Jacqueline, which is the face of MIKUTA, I would say. Most of the time, just see on the picture, the bottom of her face.
For context, who is Jacqueline?
Jacqueline is the co-founder of MIKUTA. She's an influencer, having a background of traveling, and she starts launching a jewelry collection, where she really had such a big community. And I think the first time when I did the interview, she almost has 1 million followers. And I'm just, oh my God, I'm going to meet like a star. I was really impressed about meeting her, where she was like super relaxed, really cool, even not like having this ego thing that I could have imagined. She was like super nice. And yeah, and she did this, I would say, in an organic way, really naturally. A lot of women represent themselves behind her picture. So yeah, she's the face of the brand. This is how I would say. Even at this face, when I always say to people, I say she's the soul of the brand. And she's so important because, for example, people think that as a designer, I'm the one designing the collection. No, it's like I need to have the essence of Jacqueline to see in which direction I'm kind of going. So she's the creative director. This is her title in the company.
And how can you be a good designer who designs products for someone else's vision?
I'm good at that. Actually, there is different profile. I think for me, there is two types of designer. The one where they have a strong taste, and it's really difficult for them to adapt into a company and into a completely different style of design, because they will always push for their own design. And I'm a little bit the opposite. So it's like kind of understanding, and then I'm trying not to bring my own taste, but if it makes sense for the company, then I will push it. But otherwise, it's more to understand. I'm really kind of an analytic designer, what they could also say a boring designer in a way, but I need data. And I think this is the reason why we get along together, because I analyze, I try to understand the story of Jacqueline or what she wants to tell, which stage she wants to go, and then I integrate them into the design. But I need to understand her things. And on the side, I also need to bring trends and stuff like this. But if I give an example, I think in luxury, you sometimes can see people where they understand the brand. For example, Karl Lagerfeld, I think he was really good at Chanel because he understood what Chanel was. And on the other hand, Demna for Balenciaga, he brought his own perspective and his own design. So it changed completely Balenciaga. And this is interesting because Demna, it's the personality. And for example, Karl Lagerfeld, he knows how to work for a company. If I give like big example, not comparing to them, just saying.
That's interesting. And what exactly does a buyer do, Rita?
I usually sum this up as the analytical part of product, so the less sexy part of product. It's the structure, I would say, that glues everything together. And I've never thought of that expression of an analytical designer, but I think that's actually very accurate. Usually when I used to work with designers before, there's always this need that I have to show some numbers even before designers start designing, just to help them understand how buying can fit still in design. There's usually a lot of budgeting, structuring work before even the design kicks off. And I think it helps a lot when you have someone that has already worked in a structured company. I think I do remember Christian, the MIKUTA CEO, telling me in our first meeting that our designer wanted a budget. So the kickoff.
You were asking for a budget? Never happened.
I know, I'm not so command. Talk to me about designer. They will say, yeah, this person is crazy.
Yeah, what is she doing?
So I think that was actually the kickoff, I would say, of the buying work, is when you have a sales forecast and you translate that into a buying forecast and the buying budget. And then comes after with a more detailed assortment plan. That is what we share with design for them to start doing their magic.
I think many brands go through the same pain. I have 10 of them top of mind. I won't mention them, but one of them is the Arf Avenue. Sorry for that. No, but they go through the same pain. So they start mature. They don't know anything about the industry. Then they become successful, meaning there is a demand for what they sell. And then you start buying, you overbuy certain products, you underbuy other products. You don't do it on a risk managed basis. So then you fall flat on your face, you kind of learn, and then you try to get it right. And sometimes you do all this journey early, and sometimes you do this journey way, way later on. But I think many entrepreneurs go through the same shit. Let's start with the first step, which is product design. And since MIKUTA is a fashion brand, let's talk about the fashion industry. So, Gal, how do you know if a product has a good design and a bad design, and if it has demand or not demand in the market?
Wow, that's kind of a question. There is like different entry. First one, it depends if we need to follow kind of trends. So there is trends, analyzing the trends, seeing, okay, on the different catwalk. Right now, it's also on Instagram, on TikTok, on Pinterest, just seeing which are kind of the things that look like we need to inject. This would only be like, I would say 20% of the collection, because we need to bring newness. And I think this is something where, like, for example, you need to let us a bit of space to say we need to try. Because if you want to bring also newness season per season, we need to have this space. Otherwise, you just became a brand which is doing always the same. And this is kind of a risk as well that can happen. Then, I also arrived, there was like few design that was done. So I already saw like some different shape, pattern that was working. So what I tried to bring, I remember this is one of the first things, just saying, I will call them, in French we call it little border. So it's like, this is working. So like this shape that we have, which actually, this detail that we have in the collection, which is kind of the long sleeve and also having the thumb hole, just saying, we have it on this style. Why do we should do this as an element of the collection, just trying into different products. When something is working, we have it in short, we make it in long. I mean, Rita has this logical just saying, add a color. I just say, MIKUTA is not color. So it's like, I don't know what I can do, but we are trying more and more to bring colors. But this is also like this logical that usually you are the one coming, but I'm also having a little bit this logical about how to do.
Super proud of your answer, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of structure in there. Yeah.
A lot of thought, actually.
Yeah.
And what is your perspective that when it comes to a successful product? Like, how do you know whether something works or doesn't work?
Okay, to start with, there's no crystal balls, to be clear. There is always going to be stuff that we bet is going to be a super bestseller, and it's not. This is fashion. It's not beans and rice and milk, so it's not that easy to predict. But we can spot some patterns. I think that's what I try to do the most, is to try to spot patterns from previous historical data.
What kind of patterns?
So when I bring information to design, I try to be specific, like on colors, on shapes, on even moments when we launch this, on the length of a product, the length of the sleeves, that we could spot like this color is not exactly the same as this one. But then if we look into colors that are bright colors instead of muted colors, let's do the opposite. Or it is an oversized fit, or is that a slim fit? Should we see performance grouped by that? So I try to look into numbers and group product in different ways to see if there's patterns in there. And I try to be very specific. Instead of telling design knit sweaters work, I want to go with pink knit sweaters were working, or the oversized pink sweaters were working, or the long sleeves were working. So I think that's a way to make data insight easier to incorporate at a design level instead of going too broad.
In e-commerce, you talk a lot about not working in silos within the different departments. So let's say the performance marketing team has a certain knowledge about what is working in ads. So you want the performance marketing team present during the design process so you can implement that knowledge into the product so that you can increase the likelihood of success when you launch a new product. And the same thing here with you, Rita, that you're analyzing data. You see what fit, what fabric, what color, what something, a print, a collection, a vibe that works and doesn't work. And then you got to communicate this to Yugal so that you know what to prioritize and what to design. But my question is, who's designing here? Like, who's the decision maker on what to focus on and what to prioritize on what to do when it comes to designing the product?
Because we try different things. I think one was the biggest changing is when Rita came and she said, okay, I need trouser. Mm-hmm. So at first she said the number, and then it was really the question about, it's difficult to imagine it as a product. I think really you need to think, for example, with the trouser, it's like a project range. So I just know when I design, and I also have these things because you also explain me the data and everything. Just say this was working, this was not working. So I'm already anticipate kind of the point where you will come, mm-hmm. where I say, okay, this one, no worries, I'm doing this one. So you feel safe, you're going to do your business. Leave me the space to try this one. I know it's look crazy, or the pattern or the color or the shape is crazy, but let me do. And then after, it's of course a conversation that we need to have together to kind of say if we agree or not. So usually, in the last time, we are still trying to figure out different way, but Rita coming, analyzing the number, me at the same time saying these are the trends. So we do this together. I mean, what you saw is the presentation of the collection, but you already have a first meeting, which was more, I mean, for you, it was more into data. For me, it was like more trendy. And we say, okay, so, and here we invite all the people in the product department. So everyone is aware about the trends and the data. We start designing the collection. I have a number of styles that I need to design that I didn't have before. So when you say also when I started, it was like, oh, let's do like a t-shirt and another t-shirt and let's do a dress. But we didn't really count the number of styles that we had. So this also brought like a lot of structure. Right now, we even go more in detail about we need to do like something similar than this. This we need to add like a color. This we just need to repeat. So we also go more structure. We work in the design side. So in the design plus with the creative director and the CPO. getting into the designing the collection, having some design meeting, and at the end we show our proposal then to the purchasing, where they can say yes or no in a way. Ideally, this is how it's happening, and then we update based into this, and then after we can go into tech pack and to give this into the product development team.
So it is purchasing who decides what's actually launched?
Not exactly like that. I think it's a balance. And I think for simplicity, we could even split a collection into two things, like the basic styles and the fashion styles. And I think actually it's that balance that is working. So on the basic styles, the ones that are the money makers, I have a louder voice, let's say. Those are the ones that I am super happy that design takes a look, because we have to refresh them and make them still relevant to the industry, to the customer. But those are the ones that I'm protecting the most. And so if there's a new color on that product, that I'm requesting that to happen, because I do think that's important. It's a basic style. But then there's the fashion styles, where I think we leave more room for creativity and for experiment and for design to do crazy stuff and help the brand evolve and find the new bestsellers for the future. Sometimes we strike something really good. And initially, when we think on fashion styles, in my mind, it's low quantities. It's going to be a trial. Let's see how that goes. Maybe that goes well. We can reorder later. But sometimes design comes up with something that is strong, like a Leo print, for example, that initially might have looked like a fashion style, but apparently it is commercial and it's selling very well. And then we can increase quantities. So sometimes it changes from what we thought initially, but I think it's like a balance between the two.
And MIKUTA recently launched the Valentine's collection, Blame It on Love. Is that a fashion collection or a let's scale current top performing products collection?
Tricky question,
because it's not the first one we did, so we already had some results. So for me, the fashion would be like kind of, okay, let's go crazy and let's know mostly of the style we knew that you were asking for them, right?
Yeah, I would say it's more of a performance-driven drop, I would say.
Why?
Because we capitalize on our bestsellers from the previous year. We use similar colors. We added a print, which was something that was working before. That was not in the Valentine's collection, but we saw that going well in the Fall Winter 25 collection. So we added that, and we leveraged also on that by adding different product categories like jewelry that were working super well. So I think would be more performance-driven.
But there is design there.
Sure.
So that's why it's not kind of trendy or anything. This collection is strong in the design side because there is a storytelling. You spoke about the storytelling. It's something that was impossible to do at the beginning. You also spoke about marketing asking to understand the collection. Before, as it was like more divided and we were less people, it was easier to explain the collection. The presentation that you saw actually as well was about explaining to the entire team the reason why we did this style at this time and which is the story that we can tell. And this is helping a lot, actually, content creation, marketing, brand marketing, performance marketing, to see also what they're going to play. And I think it's really strong. I'm really proud of this collection, but more in general for MIKUTA, because as a designer, you get sometimes frustrated because you tell a story and the story just, you don't see it appear at the end. And here it's like, it's funny, Blame It on Love. This name is still there. We spoke about this at the beginning. I couldn't say, I think it was Jacqueline who came with this, but I just love the name and I just say, I love the story behind and how I imagine also like, okay, I get passionate always when it's got to a collection. But for me, there is product, but there is more than a product. And what I try to have, it was like just explaining, like, I can imagine like in the cold winter, it's Valentine, you just want to be locked into your flat and, just staying with your lover, and this was like the entire collection about. And I like it because I still think it's visible when you see the picture, which are right now online.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm also confused. And that's the thing. I'm trying to understand the world. I don't understand it, that it's annoying. It's irritating, I think. When looking at that as an example, I mean, how such a concept appears, I mean, part of the decision-making has to be data-driven. But if you're too data-driven, you kind of kill creativity, right? But if you're too creative, it kind of usually takes too much risk because creativity takes over and you don't do buying in a proper risk-managed manner. How many % when running a fashion brand is creativity versus data? If you have to weight it, if you would have to put numbers behind it.
For me, it's 50-50.
50-50?
I think it depends on the moment or where the company is, to be honest. And actually, what is the role that the company wants to have? There are companies that are super trendsetters. And on those, it's 80 on design, 20 on numbers, because those companies will drop that style, even if it's going to perform or not. It's just their identity. And then I would say, like in the opposite, you have mass market brands that they will only do the stuff that sells. So I think it depends on where we are as a company. If we want to be super design driven, okay, it's going to be 80-20. If we just are looking for profit, make money, and we might in the meantime lose our identity, but at least we make the money. So we'll go 80 on data and 20 on design. So I think it can vary throughout the time that a company has throughout his lifetime.
I think that's a great answer. And also looking at different concepts, some companies, there's this company called 9pine in Sweden. They're the perfect direct-to-consumer company in the activewear category. They're insanely data-driven. They do iterations to products, let's say a pair of tights. It's just like a software company does to a software. You launch a version 1, version 2. I think they have like a version number 16 by now for their tights. Based on customer feedback, they adjust the fitting, the size, the fabrics, and everything in every single product. So I would say they weight data way, way, way higher, and the creativity part is way, way, way lower. For what brands should you be very much data-driven versus creative? I mean, in the activewear category, there is tons of different brands that weight data versus creativity totally different. So when does what make sense, do you think?
When I was working at Zalando, which is e-commerce driven, where you have so many data. So it's super great because you have like a lot of data and it's amazing. But the thing is, like, it can also kill a little bit, like kind of, you just want to be safe. You just want to sell. And then we forgot the creativity. So that's why I know how to work into this environment, but it's like kind of really difficult. In the other side, if you want to have like a brand, we continue a brand where it's just about having an outfit, having something creative, or just playing with the creativity, then it's the opposite, but you're also not selling. So that's why I always say, like, ideally, you made a balance as well. I think I'm also thinking, for example, about Acne. It's interesting because they do catwalk, they do crazy style, but I don't think this is what they are selling. They are selling basic or essential, kind of really like people or branding, because this is what people want. So
one fits the other.
Yeah,
I would say.
And Louis Vuitton has a catwalk and they sell fashion products. Mm-hmm. I would assume about 5% of their revenues come from the fashion category. The rest is bags.
That's why, I mean, it's super interesting to see like luxury model where we always just talk about kind of the ready to wear, but it's true. It's accessories which is selling. And it's almost like kind of invisible, but this is what people want, a piece of the brand. So it also depends on where you are. And I think it's work a lot, for example, with streetwear, where people just want to have the brand because what it represents. And I still think that MIKUTA, there is something where there is a community behind MIKUTA and people also want to own what MIKUTA represents. And I think it's way more poetic than just the name MIKUTA. So it doesn't work like, for example, with a streetwear brand where you just can write MIKUTA in big. No, this is not working. But all the image that we have online and everything, this is what people want. So, yeah.
If you have a message to deliver, you have to be more creative because you have to find a way to express that. If your brand is making product, that can be super valid reason to be in business. There maybe you don't need to go so creative. In the company I used to work before, our bestseller was this very basic black bag. I mean, every woman has a black bag. So we sell tons of that. But we used to say if we fill the whole store with black bags, imagine, it would be so boring that would not sell. We would not sell one single one. So I think the creativity feeds numbers and numbers feeds creativity. One cannot live without the other one. Yeah, I think it's that balance. It's not always 50%. Again, I think I will go back to my previous answer. It depends on where you are, where the company is, what is the strategy, if you have a message, if you are just selling goods. I think it depends a lot. It depends even on the person who is running the business. That also changes from time to time. Balance would be the perfect answer.
Could you split up the MIKUTA collections into top selling items, let's just restock them and scale them, versus new items, let's, take limited risk towards those and see what works and doesn't work.
I
This
think
is what
so.
we are doing, right?
Yeah. When you kick off a new season, we always have a list of products that we will for sure reorder. Those might be slightly touched, improved quality issues mainly, but those are the ones that they're iconic. We will reorder. And then there's room. We share a budget, which are just like placeholders that then design can fill with new stuff. So I think we can.
How many % of the total buying is the fast-moving stock, the top-selling items versus new items?
There's two ways to look into that. One is budget and one is number of styles. So on a budget level, more than half of the business is on core products and reorders. But if we look into number of styles, it's more than half on new. So we balance with we play with quantities to balance the two.
Nu tar vi en kort paus för att snacka med dagens sponsor On Digital. Timmy, många e-handlare drunknar i data, men ändå är de svultna på insikter. Varför är det så svårt att få kontroll på siffrorna idag?
För att man sitter med isolerade öar. Ditt affärssystem, din e-handelsplattform och dina annonskonton pratar inte med varandra. Meta berättar hur det går för Meta, men de berättar inte hur siffrorna hänger ihop med din faktiska affär. Man hamnar i ett evigt klipp och klistrande i Excel och andra verktyg, vilket gör att man konstant ligger efter.
Ni har byggt en brygga mellan teknik och business som ni kallar för ett business control tower. Vad innebär det i praktiken?
Vi har ett färdigt ramverk som kopplar ihop ditt affärssystem med all din marknadsföring, produktdata, lager, orderdata och massor mer i en realtidsdashboard. Du kan se din sanna lönsamhet i mobilen mellan morgonkaffet och första mötet. Du kan också använda den för riktigt djupa analyser som hela bolaget har användning för.
Och vem är det här till för?
Den växande e-handlaren eller marknadschefen som vill sluta gissa. Spenderar du 100 000 kronor och uppåt på marknadsföring i månaden så är det definitivt dags att få kontroll på vad som faktiskt driver tillväxt och vad som bara bränner pengar.
Snyggt. Och om man vill ha sitt eget control tower, vad börjar man då?
Då går man in på ondigital.io och bokar ett möte med oss. Så tar vi det därifrån.
Stort tack Timmy. Och nu fortsätter avsnittet.
And buying is not only about buying the right product, so you keep a healthy, fast-moving stock, but it's also about negotiating prices. Is that something you also focus on? And also, do you sometimes actively do not focus on pressuring suppliers on prices? What's the balance there?
There's a third member in this trio here, which is product development, who is the team that we have in charge for negotiating production prices with suppliers. And that is mainly because they are the ones that have the technical knowledge. What I can help with and I provide support with is, so I do the planning. So I do I tell them the number of units we will be buying, which is a relevant number for negotiating with the suppliers. And we use that also as an argument. So if we know that this year we will buy 3 times more than we did last year, on that we would also push suppliers a little bit more. MIKUTA is a very, I would say, timeless brand. There's a lot of products. One of our key best sellers is one of the first products being made, the MIKUTA sweater, that the supplier worked with us since the beginning. And out of the relationship that we had with them, the production price did not move. So we try to be respectful with that as well. Even though we are now buying a lot more than we did in the beginning, we know that there's an effort on the supplier side as well. So we try to be pushy when needed and balance that also.
I think Fredrik, our producer, has a question as well.
Do you consciously design hero pieces, like bold Instagram products that stop people in their tracks, knowing that the customer who comes in for it will actually buy something safer, like a white tee or a black bag? And how do you decide how much to invest in attention grabbers, the showstoppers, versus reliable bestsellers?
I think on the design side, yes, of course. Like the hero pieces is super important. So we need to have them. We need to make sure that we have them. As I say, it's healthier to have this also in the future of the brand. We need to bring newness. This is what will come. We also know that this is where we have the lower quantity most of the time, because it will help bringing people when they come to the shop or they have like the newsletter, just say, oh, there is like some newness. Oh, I like these pieces. Then they go into the shop, and it's true that mainly they go after with the bestseller or kind of with the things that we know, which is also working.
Yeah, and they are the best performing ads as well. Going to what you were saying, Björn, that in an e-commerce business, that marketing also plays a role. For sure, part of the reason why I pressure design so much to have color in the collection is because color, those hero pieces, the one that stand out the most on ads are the ones that end up with the best results. So yeah. And how do we bet? I think the bet here is in the number of styles that are bold, but also the quantities that we put on those. There are surprises, and maybe going back to Valentine's collection last year, we did this very nice silk sets in black and red. And an analytical point of view, looking into our previous information, dark colors used to sell more. So I bet more quantities on the blacks, and turns out the red pieces sold out much quicker than the black ones. So there's always surprises. We use quantities to represent the way we bet, and we want to bet on things, but we are also adapting. Again, there's no crystal balls, but we try to have some bets in there and learn for the future. So this year we kind of balanced a little bit more, but the two colors, and now the prints are the best sellers.
Sometimes the showstoppers have more refunds. How do you handle that in the planning?
We are including those returns. We do include that in our numbers, not only the product that is going out, but also what's coming in, and do a final balance of that. It's not exactly like the eye-catching products are the one the highest return rates, because usually something that is very eye-catching, something that you cannot find anywhere else. So on those, the customer usually keeps the product.
You can design a showstopper that looks really cool, but when you get it into reality, it's too much to actually wear. It fits on an Instagram feed, but not in a normal setting.
I'm thinking about the Tokyo collection, where we decided, it's Jacqueline who came, we decided to do a dress, a top and a skirt, which is completely transparent. So that was the question about, it looks so cool. We could have imagined already the picture. The thing is how are we going to sell this? Are we going to sell them or not? Spoiler alert, we sold them.
We sold, yeah, that's true.
But you also thought about, okay, will people wear it or not? And I think interesting things, so we thought about this and we just say, maybe you should also design underwear or kind of a short or a bra where you can wear it with. So at least they see it how it's worn. They can have tied or anything, but we have kind of an option. We even had an underdress where if they want to go bold, where it's kind of what we are offering also with the picture, they can go and just with the dress. And then on the side, if you want to go on the safer wear, we also have an option. So it's super important to think about the customer as well, how the customer will see the product and also how the customer will wear it. This is something really important, actually, the customer.
But I think the tough part here is there's so many different factors affecting this. So the complexity is insane. There's a complexity in terms of demand. Where's the fashion trend right now and how can we match the current trend? There's a complexity when it comes to the return rate. It's insanely different from product category to product category or different products. And, there might be a color that works in the Instagram feed, but the return rate is super high. So all these factors have to come together. And then you got to decide on the number of new products and styles versus the number of reorders and how, balance. So there's the constant discussion of balancing. And what I've seen in the market is really that the best brands of the world are the ones that combine the creative part with the pure data-driven machine. And that's the ones that tend to explode, that tend to last, at least in the upwards category in fashion.
That's why it should be a balance. For me, everything is about the balance as well. That's why the 50-50. But it's important to be sure that the design side has a voice which is loud enough, as much as the purchasing, as much as the marketing. Because when one department starting doubting or anything, it will really unorganize everything. And you will mix it. And also one of the other things that I learned is never be too drastic. Continuing trying. Because of course there is so many things. I'm thinking, for example, about the colors. The colors are working online. In the Berlin shop, Berlin, obviously it's a lot about non-color. It's not working. So if you only take the data in the Berlin store, we'll stop doing colors. But this is also kind of a mistake. But on the other hand, we also need to be sure that they have enough things that they will sell on their way. So it's always having a little bit the ears everywhere and being sure that everyone has some stuff for them. And for us, I think it's a job, and I don't know for you, but I'm constantly learning.
Yeah, and it's a daily. Yeah. It's a daily thing. It's that balance. It's on daily decision. It may start with when we do the budget and kick off a season. There's this strategic moment when we think about the collection, and in there's also play with a balance between the two strengths. Let's say the two forces. But there's also on everyday decision like should this skirt be shorter? How many customers will we lose with that? Should we make a darker version? We already have that other dark version. Okay, so there's also that balance every day, and we every day are adjusting. I think we are adjusting every day.
So let's talk about the process of coming up with, let's say 2027. Let's say we're halfway into 2026. We have already set the budget and the forecast for 2027. That's where we start, right? We start with the top line. This is the revenue we want to generate in 27. We do the math backwards and see how much buying is required to achieve that gross revenue goal. And then you got to adjust obviously for, return rates and everything that is included, right?
Leftovers even.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, true. Or the leftovers.
So what's next? What's happening next after knowing what gross revenue, meaning net revenue you want to generate, and when you have a clear buying budget, Rita?
The collection, I have to split it into categories so I can provide guidance to design. We start by dividing into bigger categories, departments like clothing, jewelry, accessories. That is a little bit more strategic. It's not only data-driven, it's also how we want to position ourselves in the future. So if I look only, for example, to jewelry and last year's data, I would not see a big growth through every month. But looking into just December, there's this really big opportunity and potential there. So I'm also changing a little bit my proposal for the future, not only looking to data, but also to some strategy, some growth strategy. And then we go into more detailed categories, defining how much we will spend by category, let's say pants, shirts, shorts, skirts, footwear, all of that. And then we have to divide it into 3 different dimensions, which is just a game. Like when we know that we will spend 1 million euros in skirts, that is then a combination of 3 things. Is how many skirts we will buy. I mean, how many SKUs, different styles we will buy. How many units we will buy on average on each. And what is going to be the retail price. So what I do here is I take the hardest ones first, and then as a result, I get the number of styles to do. So I start with pricing, which should reflect the strategy in the company as a positioning. If we want to go super high or super low, of course, I do check if styles in the past are where are the ones that performed the best. But if I know that in the future we want to go for very premium materials, we want to do stuff that is better quality, even that is going to be this very specific pattern making, all of that we will improve in there, I know that has to be reflected somehow in the price. Okay, so price is out of the question. And then I have average quantities and number of products. To average quantities, I look into sell-through rates. Looking into overall of what we have bought in the past, how many of those styles did I actually sold? Usually an healthy rate would be around 60%. So everything that is below 60%, I should reduce average quantities. On the ones that are above, there is potential in there and I could increase. And then because this is math, the beginning number is the overall amount that I'm going to spend. If I take price out of the equation, average quantities of the equation, I then have the final number of styles that I'm giving design to design.
I'm so happy I'm not really
You're tired already.
When you asked the question, I was like, I don't know how to answer to this question.
So you just mean that 5 skirts. You designed 5 skirts. You got enthusiastic about the colors. I got enthusiastic about this.
I'm super happy that you're here to take care of that.
Yeah.
Of course, there is data, but I'm also thinking that you spoke a little bit about this. Like you need to wait the last minute as well, because you never know. For example, we are planning the collection of the fall winter, but we still have some style that maybe in the spring summer that could be good, and we doesn't really have like a seasonality from a spring summer to a fall winter. So we maybe still need to keep some space there. And it's something where we always need to keep this in mind. Also, seasonality of the product. Sometimes some products fail, not because they are not good, because most of the time the designer is amazing. Which is not. Actually, seasonality. When are we launching the product? Is it the right time to launch this product there? And this is still something where we need to adapt. So sometimes like just pushing and just say, I think we need to keep this product.
Yeah, not being
but
drastic.
Just to do it, like try it 1 month earlier, because this is maybe where we're going to sell it the best. So it's also like a lot. And then where for me, it's even more complex. It's really when we come to marketing, because we are also like, having a lot of ads. And this is the things where for me, it's more blurry, where it's like kind of, but it was selling also because there was an ad there. So there is data everywhere, but how do we take them as well? How do we take also the right decisions? Sometimes it's crazy actually realizing like all these things that you need to be careful of.
Yeah, and we have a starting point with the budget, but it's not a strict thing. So if when Kyle is doing the trend report, there's a lot of skirts coming, long, midi, mini, there's going to be a season of skirts. Even though in my assortment, I might have only 5 skirts and the rest is all pants, there's of course room for more skirts and for development, for we at least sample skirts that might in the end look like bestsellers, and at the end we will switch a little bit of the budget that we're planning for pants to skirts. And I think the baseline here is we have to find the bestsellers of the future. There has to be room for something new, otherwise we would just get old.
Yeah, and there is some base rules in the playbook, which is one of them is do more of what works, do less of what doesn't work. And I would also assume that the flexibility when it comes to buying top sellers has to be bigger than the flexibility of new categories, new products, the fashion-driven pieces. When it comes to new pieces, it's more about risk management. When it comes to top-selling items, it's even good with the flexibility so that you can restock if demand increases for the sweater or similar, so you can quickly reorder those and get them back in stock. So it's really a work in progress, and there are so many different elements, as you say. This is a complex ecosystem, and when you look at the data, there can be an activity we did in February 25 that everyone forgot about that affected the data, so it affects your buying decision, Rita, which then fucks up 26 because you potentially buy way too much or way too little. But also other external trends, like fashion trends and stuff, that concerns me the most, Gael. It's also the most complex thing because it's like, what is the demand in the world right now? It's impossible to guess. But if you take like the fashion industry and fashion trends, like how heavily or unheavily is MIKUTA as a brand affected by current fashion trends?
It's always affected by fashion trend. You never know exactly how. I have an example with MIKUTA. When we start selling pink, there was the movie Barbie coming out, and there was like this huge trend about wearing pink. So this is why for me, it's like still something where I need to be aware culturally wise. So I'm not data driven, but I need to feel what's happening in the world or around us to see what we can do. I also explained in the latest trend, because it's not only about catwalk and everything. I explained when I present the latest trend that there is a lot of things around olive, camouflage print and everything. So this will come again in fashion. The reason is because it's really insecure, because there is like a lot of things where there is like the world war, army, and things coming, and there is like this anxiety coming, and that's designer or creative can feel. And this is why you will see in the next year having more dramatic outfit or stuff like this. And I think this for me is important because it's kind of data that I'm taking in a way that I feel it's difficult to make the quantity out of it, but it's, as I say, it's being a sponge and trying to understand the world in a different way. For you, it's with math. For me, it's empathizing a little bit the world around. So, yeah. It
has to be in there. I think we want to be a timeless brand, and more than half of our business is on the same pieces that we have last year that we are very proud of. But I'm imagining we can ignore what's happening in the world, and that in any way has to be represented in our collection. If it is just the color that we choose for our old batwing dress, maybe it's green, it's army green, something like that. So there's something in there that goes in the collection, even though we are still loyal to our bestsellers, something like this. And while I'm talking now, I'm just thinking it's a balance between past and future. Like you look into the future, I look into the past, and we try to make something that will work in the present.
You mean like this. I'm the fashion and you're the old-fashioned one?
Yeah, I am. Probably.
That was an interesting perspective. So the designer looks into the future, and the buyer looks into the past, and you kind of try to combine those while also avoiding having silos internally so that the performance perspective and the finance perspective and the design perspective and all the perspectives come together.
Yeah.
Sounds easy.
It sounds, but it's also when you say about like the amount of how you see like kind of the new collection versus the reorder or what we do, I think you spend even more time into the reorder and the seasonal update. And for me, I almost spend mainly of my time on the new style because this is where I need to look. I'm trusting you, making sure that also on the
baseline is there.
Yeah, it's done. And then I can also have more space. I guess that's also maybe the reason why it's working quite well because we naturally, without expressing it, this is how we think.
How we focus then. And then it's like how we ensure that the business continues to grow. Like I do my part, you do yours. You look into the future, I'll just ensure that every day we get something coming out of what we already done.
It's not easy because, for example, sometimes we put our nose on the old style and we want to update them. And this is where it's become a mess. And this is where sometimes
that's the tricky part. Yeah. I think for design, updating old styles would be the hardest part because you want to update it. I'm imagining you want to update it to make it still relevant, but you cannot update it too much. Otherwise, it would have a completely different sales performance and you are not allowed to do that. So it's probably a struggle and I recognize that.
It's really the biggest tension.
Yeah. There's like this sales bucket that I really want to protect, but otherwise there's product life cycle also. So the product may start being like, not relevant anymore, and you have to do your magic in there.
What is the biggest design fuck up in the history of MIKUTA?
It didn't come live, so this is good. But I remember that sequin was working so well. And for me, I say, okay, if sequin is working, then we do a skirt, then we do like another. So we had the mini skirt, we have a top, which was open. I just say, let's do sequin into our large fit because we have this oversized fit. And one good thing, so I mainly do the fitting with Jacqueline where she's trying. And usually if it looks good on Jacqueline, I just say, we can sell it. And it's good because she's also like kind of the model. So you can see it, how it will look, if she can style it or not. It was looking so ugly. But the idea was here, it was like kind of sequin, large, everything was supposed to match. She tried the proto we receive, I just say, no. Definitely, it's a big no. We cannot do it. So sometimes just using logical things doesn't work at the end. It needs to have a little bit this magic.
And what's the big learning there? That you cannot
just use...
Be too logical about your decision making.
You cannot just use only good recipe. It also need at the end, it need to look good. Yeah.
And what's the biggest purchasing fuck up?
Actually, it's nothing too different. I was thinking that the struggle that I had and what I think was one of the worst moments was actually using that old recipe that I got before, looking straight into this. Let's do exactly like that. And I can use an example for this. From my previous experience, bracelets in winter usually sell less because people have their wrists covered. So I bought too little of our bracelets. Turns out they are crazy bestsellers throughout the year. So I completely fucked up because I did not prepare for that. And that was because I was using that recipe, the logical thinking that I had before, that pattern that I had before. So yeah, we cannot use exactly what was prescript for us before.
So it's kind of a similar learning, which is, don't overthink things, don't be too strategic, because sometimes things just happen without you being able to explain it.
Yeah, I think so.
I also know that scaling the supply chain of the jewelry category has been a challenge to find jewelry producers that can match the production demand we want to buy.
Yeah, that's true. And I think mostly because we want to be loyal to the idea of producing as locally as much as possible. So we don't want to, as a brand, to go to different locations that do not represent our core values. It's been hard to increase that, but also not only the number of products or the quantities that we want to have, but also the quality that we want to have. We want to continue to deliver products that live a lifetime. So we are very picky on what we deliver to the customer. We have a designer that is focused only on accessories. That would allow us to speed up on that process. And we have also someone from PD focused on that, is allowing to find new suppliers. And we are increasing our ability to have stock available. But of course, as in fashion, everything takes a while because of the production deadlines. I think we only see results in 4 to 5 months. And there's also then demanding playing differently than what we planned. So that also does not help, but in a good way, of course. Yeah.
And how about wholesale? Wholesale is kind of a pain in the ass for a buyer, especially if you're digital first, classic direct consumer fashion brand. You're used to selling directly to the end consumer. You're used to doing it mainly through digital channels. You might have 1 or 2 stores, but whatever, 99% of the business is selling online through meta ads directly to end consumers. Then suddenly there comes the trend of wholesale. Everyone is supposed to do wholesale and sell to physical retailers all over the world. And the risk is having that demand cannibalizing on the D2C margins and the D2C stock. How big of a challenge has this been for you, Rita?
A big one, I would say, balancing all of that, especially because timelines on wholesale are completely different than retail and e-commerce. I think we have to even internally adapt the way that we buy and the moments when we buy, even the collections that we do, and to be able to still be MIKUTA, but in a completely different timeline for a completely different type of customer. And then there's also MOQs and quantities that it's relevant to play with, even negotiation with suppliers, because wholesale is becoming a reality now, but it's growing little by little. So there's a lot of operational work. There's quantities that we might not be able to provide the customers with, because we at the end they are so low that we cannot produce them. I think we were just trying to get comfortable with the way we were working before, and now there's wholesale to mess this up. I don't think we master it now. We are working on that.
Do you offer 100% of the collection or just a smaller amount of the full collection to?
As we want to be, again, that timeless brand, we are working with those products. Our core products that we know are best sellers are the ones that we are offering those wholesale customers. And that was how we started. Now we are moving that to something a little bit more updated, and we are using some seasonal updates. So updating colors. There's also something that had to change on a design level, that you guys have to start planning on the seasonal colors before designing the rest of the collection for us to have something to showcase at wholesale, and then combining what was a core product with something that is also new and relevant for them.
She's right. I think we are struggling. I think it's even not like kind of only a purchasing topic wholesale. It's also impacts a lot the design. And there is plenty of different ways to work with wholesale. So it's like, we have a wholesale collection that we need to do at one point, or we do all the collection earlier, but then it affects everyone. And we don't have like the data as so more accurate, or we do our specific collection, or it's like just a part or adding. But even like kind of if we integrate the design process, so if you want to have the wholesale there, it means that the entire creation and conception of the collection should be earlier. And there is still a calendar for designer to go to the fair, to do the store check, to see like what's happening, that it's also difficult to change. So no, it's a big topic. But I also think that right now with the customer that we have online and in the shop, maybe wholesales could be like a good opportunity. So it could really be where we also can grow. But the thing is like maybe so we need to invest more, but we need to be sure about where we want to go. So it's a bigger topic than it looked like, actually. Yeah.
And running might be the same sport, but running 100 meters is something totally different than running a marathon. And it's kind of similar here. You sell the same product, but it's two totally different, fundamentally different business models. And you need totally different strengths and weaknesses to be successful with wholesale versus, your own physical stores like H&M versus D2C only. So it feels like you kind of got to pick. It feels like you almost have to internally differentiate the processes for D2C versus wholesale. So there's a design team for wholesale. There's a buying team for wholesale. I'm thinking down the road that, it is really, really challenging having the same people selling the same products to both wholesale and D2C simultaneously. What's your thoughts on that, Rita?
Yeah, that's completely true. I think the companies that are wholesale focused kind of have like this different collection being prepared. And I think that happens because on a data perspective, that comes so early, preparing for wholesale comes so early that there's a lot more of guesswork and not so much of data. At the same time, you can try to spot trends with the way customers behave and react so early in the collection that you can later use to retail or for e-commerce. From my experience, at Salsa Jeans, the wholesale business is quite big, and there was separate teams just working with different timelines, with different collections even. And I think the challenge in there was, how do you still are your own brand? How are you still MIKUTA if you are designing two different collections for the same season that target two different customers? Yeah, it's not just a purchasing issue, I would say. To me, it's a struggle would be more on using data that I don't have because we are working so ahead of schedule. There's MOQs, there's a lot of like operational things, but there's also the way we structure the teams. Even product development is highly affected. This design has to think of like two different collections. And still integrate them into the same. Yeah.
I got the message.
yeah. I would say, yeah. I think companies usually have two different teams, but has to be in the end someone that gets the whole vision together.
And that's also another interesting point, like having this key person that acts as a, communicator between the different silos. So you have the silo of buying, of design, of performance marketing, of customer support. There's got to be a person there in between who makes sure the data from the returns management and the learnings we get from what products and categories that have high versus low return rates, what the fuck up is within the jeans category right now, or the dress category, or the jewelry category, like how this information reaches you. Who is this person right now? Who's the person ensuring there is no silos in MIKUTA?
Yeah, I think it's the CPO. Yeah,
Chief Product Officer.
Yeah, that's it. The Chief Product Officer is the one that glues the different perspectives into one and makes sure that, I would say it's orchestrating us and to make it work, and a nice music in the end.
Because that's also the things with the two office. And so the CPO is managing the design, the purchasing, and the product development. So we also can have like these things which is working better. Then there is like the CPO and the COO, and the CEO is, so I think like the work of them together is super important to see how they communicate, because I think it's still kind of something where it's challenging, where there is the product team on one side, and it's like really how we communicate also with the other department. So, and I think that this is like kind of the nice things also to come in the future.
What's the potential in the fashion industry right now?
What I can say, it's like the fashion industry is super challenging right now. It's a super difficult business. And MIKUTA is like, in a way, it works. And what I can say is also because we are talking to an audience where we don't really have, I would say, so much direct competitor, even if it's kind of looks simple. So it's in a way being lucky, finding the right language as well. But as I say, super challenging, but we have like a door open for us. This is how I would say. I don't know how you see it, by the way.
I have an analytical answer for that, for sure. I think the potential here for the future is cost per wear. At a very extent, I would say. It's creating products that are new but are still able to be worn forever. It's the hot topic now. It's have something that could last, that is not going to be disposable, all of that. And then I think there's also some value on the second hand. But when we look second hand, it's also cost per wear. So yeah, I think it's not a sexy answer, but I think cost per wear is the potential how fashion can continue growing. Yeah.
But the product lasts, yeah, it's something which is important. It's something we're also working on. It's also having like more qualitative products. Because I think it's important. We also have like good qualities and everything. So important to see that they are lasting in time. And secondhand, yeah, it's also like it's a topic. I mean, I saw, for example, I think Vinted is the first clothes selling reseller in France. It's like kind of okay. So it means something about the secondhand as well.
Yeah, Vinted is going nuts. It's insane how much they've grown. It's a French company, isn't it?
Isn't it Lithuania?
Actually, have someone in our team that came from Vinted. Yeah, on marketing.
I'll have them on the podcast.
Oh, that's right.
What's the one thing you would want to recommend to the podcast listeners and viewers?
Take a look at MIKUTA collection to start with. Valentine's could be a nice advice. Just for fun. It doesn't have to be business. Go scroll and see if there's anything that would be worth.
No, actually, I have one. I have one that I'm saying always like to people. For me, at the end, it should be fun and we are not saving life. So it's also important to have like this balance, actually. And I just can speak about the work. This is the reason why I'm doing fashion. It's just because I love the product. I love to talk about this. I love the story. But at the end, we have a lot of stress because of everything that we just say. It's crazy to think about all this data, about all these things. We have a pressure which is crazy because we want to sell, but sometimes our decision, it's kind of really strange. So it's good at the end just to think about, we are not saving life. I think there is more important work there, and it's helped to relax thinking about the business. And I think when you don't have fun anymore into what we are doing, into what we are working, this is maybe where we should think about doing something else.
Great answer.
They are still having fun, by the way, doing design.
That's good to hear. How about you, Rita?
I had some extra seconds to think about that. So I would think that's something that is applicable both on a personal level and professional, which is don't forget about empathy. The world is not exactly just the way we see it. And it is on a professional level on everything that we were discussing before. So I have to, in a way, kind of forget a little bit of my own perspective to open room for someone else's perspective. But there's also right now in our personal life, politics, everything that's happening in the world, empathy and looking into the world in the perspective of the other. I think it's in the end what will allow us to live better. Personally, for ourselves, individually, but in the world.
Great answers. And if there's one person you would recommend to the podcast, who would that be?
Our marketing manager coming from Vinted that is bringing a lot of changes to the way we are working. So yeah, that's mine.
I might have someone, so I'm thinking more about previous experience and about like really in the design side. So when I was working in France, I was working for La Redoute, who had to face and to change like a lot of different structure with catalog and e-commerce. And there was like this creative person, which is called Sylvette Lepers, which I think is amazing. She saw like the brand growing and changing and still bringing like kind of fashion. So for me, in the fashion way, this is like someone that I'm really inspired by her.
Really cool. And guys, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and so openly sharing about your knowledge. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And tomorrow you're flying out. No, tonight you're flying out to
Copenhagen.
For wholesale. There's a wholesale fair, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Exciting. So it's already fucking up your purchasing plan.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we are going to go there and check on customers, see the real needs, what exactly they are requesting from us. And we are going both to have that perspective on purchasing and design as well, because it's impacting everyone. So yeah, it's real.
And if people want to get in touch with you guys, how do they do that?
They can contact me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I think this could be like the easiest way to talk with me.
But actually, our emails are quite simple at MIKUTA. Mine is rita@mikuta.com.
And gael@mikuta.com.
Perfect. And we'll both add your emails and LinkedIn channels to the show notes of the podcast. Thanks again for coming. Om ni vill komma i kontakt med våra fantastiska poddgäster, gå in i show notesen så hittar ni både mail och länkan till dem, så kan ni langa iväg ett DM. Vill ni komma i kontakt med mig så gör ni det lättast på LinkedIn. Sök på Björn Pålman Spenger, så finns jag där. Glöm inte att ratea podden i alla kanaler som finns, det vill säga Spotify, Podcaster, och så går in på YouTube och följ oss på YouTube. Gå och kommentera gärna på YouTube. Skriv frågor till oss på YouTube. Föreslå gäster till oss på YouTube. Vi svarar på allt och vi läser allt. Det vore så jäkla kul om vi kan få fler som följer oss på YouTube helt enkelt. Jag vill också tacka vår fantastiska sponsor Orange Juice. Orange Juice är inte bara en performance agency, utan Orange Juice har ett helhetsperspektiv. Det är alltså Jakob Wibom Westerberg, den här superkända e-handelsprofilen som har startat och driver den här byrån. Och som sagt, de jobbar inte bara i Meta, de jobbar inte bara i Google, de jobbar inte bara med performance marketing, utan de tar ett helhetsperspektiv. De kollar på din GM1, GM2, GM3, det vill säga att de gör en helhetsanalys och så här, behöver vi upphandla nya leverantörsavtal? Behöver vi upphandla nya logistikpriser? Eller kanske behöver vi en större content output för att effektivisera marknadsföringen? Alltså genom att kolla på hela P&L och hela balansräkningen så får man ett mycket mer strategiskt perspektiv. Vill du läsa mer om det här? Vill du signa en ny byrå som är helt episk och kanske den bästa i Norden, så ska du gå in på oj.co, det vill säga ohjai.ch. ohjai.ch. Vi kommer också länka dem i shownotesen. Missa inte det här, Orange Juice, det vill säga oj.co. Jag vill också tacka våra fantastiska poddproducenter, Fredrik Ankersköld som producerar podden och Mikaela Dorsch som klipper podden. Stort tack för att du har lyssnat. Vi hörs igen nästa fredag klockan 08:00. Hej!
Hej!